All right, so we're diving deep today into the world of Haruki Murakami, specifically his novel Norwegian Wood. I know a lot of you have been asking for this one, so
Sure.
you want to talk about love, loss, longing, big stuff, right? And we've got this academic paper that breaks it all down, so we're going to see what we can learn.
Well, what's interesting about these themes in Norwegian Wood? It kind of gives us a glimpse into like Murakami's bigger picture view
Right.
of what it means to be human. Like
Oh.
he doesn't shy away from the darker side of things, the psychological stuff around love and loss. And I think that's a big reason why so many people connect with his work.
Yeah, and it's crazy how he mixes that with like everyday stuff. Pop culture, music, you name it. It's not what you'd expect from a serious writer, and yet it totally works. I mean, there's a reason he's like a global phenomenon.
Right, exactly. It's that mix, the everyday with the big questions about life and death. And I think to really get the power of these themes, we got to understand the world of Norwegian Wood.
Okay, so set the scene for us. Who are the main characters? What's going on?
Okay, so picture it, 1960s Japan, a time of huge social and political upheaval. We meet Toru Watanabe. He's a college student dealing with the suicide of his best friend, Kazuki.
Hmm.
And this loss, this grief, it's like this massive event that colors everything that happens after.
Wow, that's heavy. And then there's Naoko, Kazuki's girlfriend. I imagine she's going through a lot too.
Absolutely. And through Naoko, Murakami really explores this idea of love that grows out of shared grief. But it can get kind of twisted too. The paper even talks about her possibly having PTSD. Like her intimacy with Toru, it's not really about a genuine connection. It's almost like she's escaping her past. There's this one part where Murakami describes their physical intimacy as nothing but the joining of two bodies. It's powerful, but also kind of sad.
Oh, that's heartbreaking. It makes you wonder, can love that comes from something so tragic ever really work?
Yeah, and that's what makes Midori's character so interesting.
Yeah, Midarshi's like this burst of energy, super independent, and offers Toru a totally different kind of love, one that feels more like present and alive.
Exactly. She's like this symbol of life and vitality and healing. But the thing is, Murakami's telling this whole story as a flashback. It's triggered by Toru hearing the Beatles song Norwegian Wood years later.
Oh, yeah, very Murakami, blurring those lines between what's real and what's memory. Makes you wonder, can we even trust Toru's telling of the story? Is he romanticizing things, trying to make sense of it all through his current lens?
Right. It just adds another layer to those themes of love and loss. After all, how we remember our past loves, it shapes how we experience love now.
So we've got these three characters, each showing us a different side of love. Toru, stuck between grief and this chance for something new. Naoko, trapped in the past and all that pain. And then Midori, representing hope and healing.
And it's their relationships woven together with music and memory that create this really powerful look at how love can be both a source of comfort and pain. It all comes down to the choices we make. Do we cling to the past like Naoko? Or find a way to move forward like maybe Toru does? And as the story goes on, we see Naoko withdrawing even more, like retreating into herself. She ends up in a sanatorium. It's almost like she's physically trying to escape the memories that haunt her.
Yeah, that image of her in the sanatorium, trying to find some peace, it's really powerful. It speaks to her wanting to heal, but also this inability to truly face her grief. Like she's running from the pain, but it just keeps catching up.
Yeah, and that puts Toru in a tough spot.
Yeah.
He wants to help her so badly, but
Yeah.
he also sees that his love can only do so much. It's like he's
Mhm.
trying to save her, to fill the space left by Kazuki.
Yeah.
That's a lot of weight to carry.
I wonder if it's even really love that's motivating him, or maybe more like obligation, even guilt, because he survived when Kazuki didn't.
That's a really interesting point, and I think it ties into this bigger theme that Murakami's exploring, this idea of possessive love. It's not always a bad thing, not intentionally, but it can be suffocating, especially when it comes from this need to fix someone or, like you said, save them.
And with Naoko, it seems like she's just stuck in the past, unable to move on from losing Kazuki.
Exactly. It's like she's holding on to this memory of their love, but it's become distorted, almost like an ideal, not real.
Yeah.
And tragically, it leads her to take her own life.
It's such a sad moment in the novel, and it forces Toru to face this really hard truth that sometimes love just isn't enough. It hurts, but it's something I think a lot of us can understand.
Yeah, for sure. We've all hit those limits of love, where it feels like we're trying to hold on to something that's slipping away, but the story doesn't end there.
Right. We see Toru struggling with Naoko's death. He isolates himself, grieves. It's like he's lost a part of himself, too.
But there's this line in the book that always gets me. He realizes that death exists, not as the opposite, but as a part of life. That's a huge shift for him, recognizing that loss is just, it's part of being human. And that's what eventually helps him start to heal and move on.
And that's where Midori comes back in, right? She becomes like this symbol of hope, this reminder that life continues even when there's so much sadness.
It's interesting, though, because Toru doesn't just jump right back into a relationship with her. He takes his time to work through his grief, to understand his feelings for both Naoko and Midori.
That feels real, human. It's not just the simple switch from one love to another.
Exactly. And when he finally does reach out to Midori, it's like a deliberate choice. He's choosing to embrace life, the chance for a future that's not just about loss. It's like he's saying death is a part of life, but so is love and joy and all those good things.
It's really powerful, a testament to how resilient people can be.
And it circles back to that question we asked earlier. Can love that comes from grief ever really be fulfilling? Maybe not the way we think at first. But Murakami seems to say that even love that starts in the darkest of places can become something new, something hopeful, if we can let go of the past and just be present.
You know what's interesting too is that the book doesn't like try to sugarcoat grief and healing.
Hmm.
It's messy, right? Toru's path isn't straightforward at all. He has doubts, questions, he even goes back to isolating himself for a bit. It reminds us there's no one way to deal with loss.
Yeah, and that's part of what makes that ending so powerful. That
Yeah.
last phone call Toru makes to Midori, it's open-ended. We don't know if they actually end up together, but there's definitely a feeling of hope there, like a chance for a future built on understanding and acceptance.
It's almost as if Murakami is saying, here's the journey, here's how love and loss can be so complicated. Now what do you make of it?
Yeah.
He doesn't give us the answers, and I think that's part of why he's such a brilliant writer.
Right? So he's inviting us into the conversation, making us think about our own experiences with love and loss and what it all means.
And speaking of those experiences, remember we mentioned Sputnik Sweetheart earlier? It's another Murakami novel that explores this idea of unrequited love, but from a different angle. There's this woman who's completely in love with another woman, but those feelings aren't returned. And it creates this really, really powerful exploration of desire and just the pain of wanting something you can't have.
It's a great example of how Murakami kind of circles back to these themes in his work, each time giving us another layer of insight, another perspective on the human heart. He's not afraid to show us the darker parts of love, how it can become obsessive or even destructive. But he also reminds us of its power to heal us, to connect us in ways we never imagined.
So, as we wrap up our deep dive here, we're left with something to think about. Toru realizes that death is a part of life. So how can we, knowing that, embrace that truth and actually live and love more fully right now? What choices can we make so we don't end up stuck in the past like Naoko, but move towards a future with possibilities like what Toru seems to be doing?
It's a big question, and it goes way beyond just Norwegian wood. Maybe the answer is finding that balance, remembering those we've lost while also being open to new experiences, new connections, new love even.
Yeah, it's a powerful reminder that even when we experience loss, life keeps going, and that continuation is filled with so much beauty and, yeah, even love waiting to be discovered.